So this recent Bournvita controversy had me thinking about a wider set of issues at play, which is why I've been hesitant to jump into the trending topic swamp and had my half-baked hot take to it. Now that it feels like the doom-scrolling public has moved on to the next outrage, I thought it might be worth stepping back and thinking about this. There are 4 things to consider. Let's start with the obvious. The visible media circus part of the story. It is silly and counterproductive for large companies to legally go after random people on social media. The worst way to diffuse an ongoing controversy is to go after people on the internet. It's called the Streisand effect. Once you do that, you will be remembered for that and not for the merits or demerits of the actual issue. Social media algorithms are optimized to amplify conflicts and constantly keep looking out for bigger and more impactful conflicts. If the original conflict was whether or not a product contains an unhealthy amount of added sugar, a giant company going after one guy on Instagram is a bigger conflict. So you've essentially shifted the narrative to a battle you cannot win. Everyone loves an underdog, even if said underdog is making a bunch of unverified claims on social media. This also surfaces a deeper realization that we often do not want to appreciate. The algorithms work the way they do because we have a negativity bias. We share the story headline that says X causes cancer and not the one that says there is no evidence that X causes cancer, which is usually true more often than not. So the social media landscape is essentially a series of hyper-amplified, context-free conflicts because that's where we get our daily fix of dopamine, constant validation from other people who want to discover bad news that we share. Now let's get to the issue itself. I grew up drinking Bournvita as a child, and everyone who grew up around me drank one of those category of products. Every day morning, add to milk and drink.
Bournvita, तैयारी जीत की.
And interestingly, when I switched to coffee as a teenager, it's not like I was now consuming less sugar per beverage. If anything, I'd add more sugar to my coffee to balance out its bitterness. But I don't think we should deal in anecdotes. Anecdotes don't really teach us anything about the world. The objective truth is that added sugars are in a ton of products. That the public is now starting to be aware of it is an excellent thing. You should be paying attention. My only request, be balanced and sensible about it. One brand isn't the exclusive source of the problem here. Just take every product in that category and you will find that they all have added sugars. In fact, some of the Indian herbal traditional flavored milk powders have twice as much added sugar than the brand in question. Then really consider the amount of sugar you consume in your daily tea and coffee. Every time you use honey, eat a biscuit or cookie, add jaggery to your food, it's all added sugar. But then you might say, this is for kids. Surely it's more serious. Do consider this. My mother had 3 boys and she was working. Millions of working moms like her do not have the bandwidth or the privilege to constantly make sure that their kids get all the micro and macronutrients they need, which is why we just give kids milk. Milk is one of the most nutrient-dense foods, but just milk can be lacking in certain minerals and vitamins. So of course you can pay close attention to it and ensure that your kids get those things in their regular food. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you saw kids eat vitamin-rich vegetables like spinach without complaint? Kids won't. And kids like sweet things. That's how we have evolved. This entire category of product became popular in the first place because it takes away at least one part of the headache of making sure that your kids get all the nutrients they need. Milk plus one of these powders largely covers vitamins plus minerals and a decent amount of protein, fat, and carbs. People buy them because they are convenient and not because they are healthy. And they contain added sugar because kids don't like drinking unsweetened milk. milk sugar, lactose, does not taste sweet. So we add chocolate that kids love, but chocolate is bitter. So that's why all the added sugar. The point here is that companies aren't fooling us with added sugar, we literally demand it. So either help Indian moms in the kitchen and do your bit in persuading children to eat more vegetables and protein in their diet, or stop whining selectively about this. Which then brings us to advertising ethics. Not particularly an industry known to be committed to the truth. I mean, after all, it tried to convince us cigarettes were healthy back in the day. They even trotted out doctors to do precisely that. In fact, rather relevantly, the sugar producing lobby in the US worked with the advertising industry in the 1950s to demonize fats so that we'd be distracted from the actual problem of too much sugar in your diet. Closer home, there is no dearth of misleading claims, everything from fairness creams to memory improvement pills to immunity boosters. So it's important for consumers to always be skeptical of all advertising. On the other hand, there is a specific seriousness required when making health claims. But clearly, the brand in question isn't the only product making health claims. Sure, all those vitamins and minerals are essential to your body's immune system to function well, no doubt. But the medical bar for making claims is that you've got to be able to prove that not consuming the product results in a weaker immune system. And of course, you cannot prove that. Look, brands make health claims because if they don't, their competition will. It's a race to the bottom, unfortunately. So be skeptical of all health-based claims and read the labels yourself. My final point is about the influencer misinformation industrial complex. With no particular focus on the individual in question, it is pretty evident that scaring people without evidence, context, nuance, or attention to detail is the easiest way to gain social media followers. No one becomes successful on social media by trotting out a bland set of factual statements like X is safe, Y is safe in moderation, this will likely not cause cancer. Right now, there are more health influencers diagnosing cancer and gut issues than actual oncologists and gastroenterologists in hospital. You can still hold a company accountable as a consumer by suing them. Although I agree, it's not for the faint-hearted. Companies are still legally required to adhere to FSSAI standards when making food. And notionally, there is an advertising code of conduct. But there is absolutely no holding influencers accountable for the claims they make and the products they endorse without even letting you know that it was an endorsement and that they're being paid to do so. You should be skeptical of large companies, their products and their marketing claims. But in equal measure, don't assume that anyone on Instagram or YouTube, me included, is somehow more transparent and honest than large companies. Don't assume that if something is called natural and traditional, it is somehow healthier. In short, don't put your trust in individuals. Put your trust in the scientific method where claims require evidence, and if the evidence does not make sense, ignore the claims.